So the existence of a new iteration for the Nintendo Switch has been moving around the rumor mill for quite some time. More specifically, the suggestion that Nintendo will be releasing a Switch Mini and a Switch Pro. And this week especially, there have been a lot more rumors and leaks about these systems than ever before. Y'all need to relax. This all started back in October of 2020. That was pretty much all we got from that article, but if you want to pay for a Wall Street Journal subscription, then please be my guest. Regardless, if this report comes from a source as big as this publication, chances are it has quite a bit of weight to it. Of course, this wouldn't be the last we hear from the good old Wall Street Journal, because last month they stated that there would be 2 new Nintendo Switch models at the end of 2019, one that is less expensive and the other higher end. The timing for this couldn't be more perfect, as the Nintendo Switch is going to be facing yet another successful holiday season, with releases like Animal Crossing, Luigi's Mansion 3, and the big one, Pokemon Sword and Shield. The release of a new Pokemon game is going to be met with an insane crowd of people, especially considering this is the beginning of a new generation. The same could be said for Animal Crossing. Despite not being as popular as Pokemon, Animal Crossing fans are a ridiculously passionate bunch. I should know. I'm one of them.
Yes! It's Animal.
Anyway, game releases like these are perfect to release alongside newer Switch hardware, namely the Nintendo Switch Mini. It may not be called that upon release, but for now, we'll use that name. If the report is true, which it has to be at this point, then the Switch Mini will act similarly to the Nintendo 2DS, making it a perfect, smaller fit for children and other gamers who wish to save more money. There was even an image released this week which appears to show off the backside of a Switch Mini at a factory in China. If you don't want to see it, however, skip to this timecode right here. Anyway, here it is. We're not quite certain if this is real, but time will tell in a few months, assuming it gets announced at E3. Let's be honest, something like this could have easily been photoshopped, so I wouldn't be surprised if this turns out to be a hoax. We will talk more about the Switch Pro in a bit, as the Wall Street Journal had way more information regarding the Mini than the Pro. As you might expect, the Switch Mini would include a heavier emphasis on portable play, as well as omitting some features that the standard Switch has. This means that the Switch Mini won't have detachable Joy-Cons or even HD rumble. That part is sort of concerning, when you remember that some games like Super Mario Odyssey have puzzles that require HD rumble. The Switch Mini might even have a gyroscope, but not having detachable Joy-Cons would make some shrine puzzles in Breath of the Wild that much more irritating. Oh, and 1-2 Switch would be pretty much unplayable. Not like you have much of a reason to play it anyway. That doesn't mean, however, that Nintendo couldn't release updates for those games to make those sections more playable on the Mini. As it sounds right now, the Nintendo Switch Mini seems like a completely different console than the standard Switch. According to that Wall Street Journal report, it's said to view the Switch Mini as more of a successor to the Nintendo 3DS. If that were to be true, then maybe the Switch Mini won't be dockable, won't have a kickstand for tabletop mode, you might not even be able to add different controllers in for local co-op, but that's just speculation. Even then, you might be able to dock the system if it does have a USB-C connection, though you would have to buy your own dock separately. As a result, you'd be able to buy a Switch Mini for less money, but with a greater amount of sacrifices. And you know what? That's totally okay. A lot of people just want to play the games on the Switch no matter what. And there are quite a few Switch owners who play their games undocked almost exclusively. Then of course, there's the children who certainly wouldn't mind waking up on Christmas morning to a Nintendo Switch Mini that is all theirs. No doubt the Mini will be designed with kids in mind, with added durability to ensure it survives quite a few drops on the floor or concrete. But what if you don't want to sacrifice the features of a standard Switch? Well, you could just buy the standard Switch, though it seems you will have another option in the near future. As previously mentioned, the higher-end Switch, which we will call for now the Nintendo Switch Pro. Back in October, we made a video asking if we really need a Nintendo Switch Pro. Fortunately, we know a lot more now than we did back then, and it seems that Nintendo is making the so-called Switch Pro to better compete with the next Xbox and the PlayStation 5. Speaking of, to everyone's surprise, we actually got an exclusive sneak peek at Sony's successor to the PlayStation 4. They didn't tell us what it was called, but come on, we all know it's going to be called PlayStation 5. Anyway, Wired.com was lucky enough to get the first look at Sony's next generation hardware. And to sum it up, it's a beast. With a custom AMD chip, a Radeon GPU that supports ray tracing, and a solid-state drive that reduces the load times in Spider-Man from 15 to 0.8 seconds. Also, if you have a TV that's as big as a mountain, the PS5 will support 8K resolutions. Probably not for games though. We still haven't cracked 4K 60, come on now. You're probably asking what any of this has to do with the Nintendo Switch Pro. Well, with the PlayStation 5 close to being released and the fact that Microsoft has been talking about their next generation hardware for a while now, it's safe to say we will be entering a new console gen by next year. Sony confirmed the PS5 won't be releasing in 2019, so 2020 would be a safe bet for both that and the next box. By that point, the Switch will be over 3 years old, right in the middle of its life cycle. This would theoretically make third-party support on the platform more difficult. If third-party developers are already making games for a console that is technologically 2 generations ahead of the Nintendo Switch, they would need a greater amount of resources and time to be able to produce their game on the handheld platform. That is unless the Switch Pro makes that easier. If we look at past Nintendo consoles, more specifically handhelds, they have always received upgrades. Game Boy Advance to SP, Nintendo DS to DS Lite, and Nintendo 3DS to new Nintendo 3DS. The last one is unique in that it was actually an upgrade in specs, causing load times to be faster, and some games like Hyrule Warriors having better performance. Exclusive games were also released for the new 3DS, but they didn't pan out too far. This raises the question, if the Nintendo Switch Pro is going to be an upgrade in power, just how much more powerful will it be? The current Switch runs on Nvidia's mobile architecture Tegra X1, which even by the time Switch released in March 2017, wasn't the latest and greatest of Nvidia's mobile offerings. Perhaps the Switch Pro will utilize a much more powerful Tegra X2. This might also mean that games will look and run better in Labo VR. Maybe games like the next Zelda and Metroid Prime 4? Who knows, man? There are a lot of questions we have, and those questions lead to branching paths of even more questions. Like, if the Nintendo Switch Pro will receive more third-party support, wouldn't that also mean that those third-party games would have to run on the standard Switch as well? Even when we take into account the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X, every game that's available on those platforms have to also run on the standard platforms. If the Nintendo Switch Pro received games that weren't able to run on the standard Switch, that would make a greater number of Switch owners reasonably upset. Heck, that's probably why we didn't get a lot of exclusive games on the new Nintendo 3DS, because that would significantly divide the player base. It's not a comforting thought. There's also the theory that the Switch Pro wouldn't necessarily upgrade the specs of the machine, but rather the features of it. Maybe instead of a 720p LCD screen, a 1080p OLED display? How about better battery life? All of these would be cool, but then comes the question on how will the Nintendo Switch survive with the likes of the PlayStation 5 on the market? Well, that brings us to another rumor from Nikkei, which states that the so-called Pro model of the Nintendo Switch has been delayed. Really? The thing hasn't even been announced yet. This rumor also suggests that the Switch Mini will come out in the fall and be dockable, whereas the Pro model is being held back, not necessarily delayed, because it is unclear who at Nintendo is leading the concept creation of the device. Sounds kind of concerning, but this is all still rumors and we still shouldn't worry too much about it yet. I don't know about you, but I have a feeling that the Nintendo Switch will be just fine during the remainder of its life, no matter what the competition throws at it. The concept of the Switch alone is something that will keep the system successful. After all, is there any other way you can play Mortal Kombat 11 on the bus? I think not. Well, there are also gaming laptops, but the Switch is so much easier to use, guys. So what do you think of the Switch Mini and the Switch Pro? Would you want to pick either one of these up? Let me know in the comment section down below. In the meantime, click that thumbs up button if you like this video, and if you are new, subscribe and hit that notification bell to know when we upload another video on the Nintendo Switch. We'd also like to thank our glorious patrons, including royal producers Kenya